Welcome to the Productive Life Podcast with Megan Minns. In this episode, we're talking about why I switched from ClickUp back to Asana. Welcome to the Productive Life Podcast hosted by me, Megan Minns. This is the podcast for entrepreneurs who want to be more productive in their business and their personal life. Because as a business owner, your business and personal life are connected, and we can't talk about one without talking about the other. Each week, you'll learn about productivity, organization, personal development, self-care, business strategies, and more. And now, let's get started. In episode 15 of the podcast, I mentioned 20 different software and systems that I use in my business on a daily basis. And in that episode, I mentioned that I had recently switched from Asana, which I've been using for a very long time, to ClickUp. And I even mentioned in that episode that I was a little hesitant to share that I was trying ClickUp because I didn't know exactly how it would play into my business in the long run and if I would keep using it. Well, of course, after that episode is live, I did decide to switch back to Asana. I shared this very briefly on Instagram stories, just mentioned in passing that I was switching back to Asana, and I got a ridiculous amount of DMs from everyone asking for more information on why I've decided to go back to Asana. So I figured I might as well record a quick little podcast episode in case you are curious about why I switched back to Asana and what I did and didn't like about ClickUp. Now, one thing I always like to preface when I'm about to talk about software or tech or systems is that there's no one-size-fits-all solution for everyone. Everyone works differently, thinks differently, and wants something different from their own platform. So just because I switched from ClickUp to Asana does not mean you should do the same or that ClickUp won't work for you. I actually have a lot of really good opinions and things to say about ClickUp. So I'm excited to kind of share both the pros and the cons, but I just wanted to put that disclaimer out there that just because I switched from ClickUp to Asana doesn't mean I don't like ClickUp or don't recommend it. I think it's a really powerful tool. I just ultimately had to make a decision that was good for me and my team going forward. So first off, let me just explain why we switched to ClickUp in the first place. I've been using Asana since at least 2014. I kind of think sooner than that, to be honest, but for a very long time, at least 3 to 4 years. And I'm a huge advocate of it. I have a course on it. I mention it all the time. I definitely recommend it as a platform. So why would I ever leave it? Well, like I said at the very beginning of this episode, no software or system is perfect. And as I was side hustling for the past year, for all of 2018, I really wasn't using Asana as intensely as I had been previously because I was side hustling. A lot of my tasks for my business in Asana were pretty much recurring administrative tasks. I wasn't doing much content, much of anything really. So there weren't really any complicated or in-depth projects being built out. It really was a place of just kind of maintenance-based tasks. So earlier in 2019, when I knew I was going to be transitioning back into being fully self-employed, I knew that I wanted to make sure I was using a project management system, both for myself and as I grew a team. Well, around this time, I'd been talking to several other of my systems friends, and a lot of them had been using ClickUp and raving about it. So I kind of figured that as I was starting to work on my business more in the beginning of 2019, that it was a natural time for me to test and play a new system because I didn't have a lot built out in Asana that would have been hard to switch. And I was about to be building out a lot new tasks and projects for the podcast, for client work, for my group program, for new things that were coming. I knew I was about to start using a project management system a lot heavier. So it was kind of a natural time for me to actually just build those things out in the first place in a new system if I wanted to test it out. So the timing made sense for me. I was also just genuinely curious about the platform because I've been hearing so many good things about it. And as much as I try to resist spending a lot of time messing around in systems, it is still something that brings me a lot of joy to play with and experiment and try something new. So I just also wanted to. So I really wanted to switch to ClickUp and use it and see if it could work for me and my team. Now, I usually tell all of my clients that they don't need to switch to a new software or system unless their current one is broken or causing problems or issues. Now, Asana wasn't directly causing me too many problems at this time, but I did experience a few problems from previously when I had used it that ClickUp could solve. And one of those in particular was the ability to automatically reschedule subtasks when the actual task had been rescheduled. Now, that is very specific, but if you were a content creator, you might be using subtasks a lot to manage your entire content process and production workflow. And if you decide to bump a video or a podcast or a blog post to be a week later, you have to go in and manually update the due date for all of the subtasks. Now, that again is very specific and very minor, but if you're doing a lot of content, that can be very time consuming, very nitty gritty, and really just not the most enjoyable way to spend your time. And one thing that intrigued me about ClickUp was that they actually have it built in where when you assign a new due date to a task, if it has subtasks, it will ask you if you want it to automatically adjust the due dates for those subtasks too, which I think is a really incredible tool and feature. And I was so excited to play with that. And it does work really, really well. So that feature was like amazing. And overall, ClickUp just had a few features I wanted to try. They have goals. They have the ability to view the same project either as a list or a board or boxes. Whereas in Asana, at least right now, you have to choose if it's a list or a board at the very beginning and you can't go back and forth between them. I'm hoping they change that soon, but for right now, you can't. So I really liked that ClickUp allowed you to see the same information and tasks in a lot of different ways. The recurring tasks in ClickUp are also very, very smart. Lots of flexibility there and tons of options. If you do a lot of recurring tasks, which I do, it can be really cool to take advantage of some of those features. ClickUp has a great integration with Gmail, which I think is so cool that when you actually add an email as a task to ClickUp, it actually directly links it. So in ClickUp, you can click through and go right to the email in Gmail. So if you're delegating emails to someone on your team, that was so cool. And I loved that feature. And that alone was like, yeah, we're switching to ClickUp because I need that. That's so helpful for me. And I also like the idea of custom statuses. So it's not just complete or incomplete. You can also have a lot of different statuses in between. So those were some of the key features I was really interested in ClickUp. And when I tested, I did really like. So that was something I was really excited to use when we switched to ClickUp and definitely did use once we made the switch. And while I was using ClickUp, I loved those features. They were really powerful, really helpful. ClickUp also has a great Chrome extension. It has the ability to do dependencies between tasks on the free plan. And really, ClickUp is such a powerful platform. I think it can do anything you want. It has so much flexibility that you can design so many different ways of working and organizing your tasks and projects within this one system. So I still think ClickUp is incredibly powerful, and it has some really, really unique features that are, I hope, something that becomes industry standard for project management systems. But despite all of those amazing things, I did run into issues personally and with my small team using ClickUp. Overall, I think that while ClickUp is really powerful, it is a little bit too complex, at least for me. I felt like there was so much time I had to spend figuring out how we even wanted to organize things. I never felt like fully satisfied with the way things were actually organized. We would switch back and forth between something being a project or a list or a task or subtasks or all these different things, and ultimately never felt like I found one solution that I was actually happy with. And so I never really felt like it was done or ready to go or actually organized. And that is using other people's resources. I mean, looking at how other people organize their ClickUp, talking to my friends about how they organize their ClickUp, I felt like I was really trying to take advantage of other people who had already been using the platform and taking their advice. But whether I was trying their tips for organizing it or my own way of organizing it, none of it really felt good. And that had a ripple effect for me. I actually stopped enjoying using the platform. I am a project management system lover, a tech lover. It is not hard for me to use software and apps and tools. Like, that's really enjoyable for me and brings a lot of delight into my days. So the fact that I didn't want to be in this software was very shocking to me and very unexpected. I actually ended up preferring to use an Evernote note or a Google Drive doc to organize my tasks. I literally got to the point with my team where I was like, I don't want to manage this project in ClickUp. Can we just manage it in a Google Doc? And I have never felt that way in my whole life. So to me, that is just a huge red flag that the software I was using wasn't working, because I actually was trying to use other systems to use it instead of ClickUp. And while there wasn't just one specific pain point that really led me to feel that way, I do feel that there wasn't a view, or I did feel that there wasn't really a view of my tasks that showed me what I wanted to see. I felt like it was a little confusing the way ClickUp does subtasks and assigned comments and tasks, and the way they organize stuff internally. I felt like when I go to view my tasks, it was really unorganized and really hard for me to see what I wanted to see in the way I wanted to see it. And so I was really frustrated. Like, honestly, had a lot of conversations with my team about like, where do I go to see that? Where is this task? I felt like I couldn't really find stuff for myself because it felt so A, unenjoyable to be in there, and B, so confusingly organized. And that isn't because of the way we set it up. I just felt like the built-in my tasks view wasn't enough. Felt like I kept having to create these new filters. I just wasn't thriving. It wasn't working for me. And that is really the most important part. Now, at first, when I was realizing this, that ClickUp as it wasn't working for me, I could have decided to put a lot of energy into ClickUp, reorganizing it, coming up with new ways to use it, new structures, new systems, new processes, and maybe we would have ended up somewhere that solved those problems. But ultimately, that felt like such a bigger project and endeavor and time requirement and mental creativity that I honestly didn't want to spend on an internal project like that. I'm really trying to be strategic and intentional with my time, and for us to just go back to Asana, a system that felt really simple and intuitive and easy for me to use, and I'm so comfortable with it, that felt so much easier, faster, and quicker. So we did decide to go back to Asana, and it has felt like coming home. I definitely think part of it is because of how familiar I am with Asana. I know it like the back of my hand. I know how to do whatever I want, and I can do it fast. I also can get really creative with how I want to organize things, especially because Asana lets you have one task in multiple different projects, which is really cool because I can actually see a task in a few different view settings. So I actually have a whole system set up right now for managing my 90-day action plans and my 2-week action plans, where I can see my projects in their task list, but I can also get a higher level view in another project in a Kanban board style where progress is across all of these projects. And it doesn't take time for us to keep up to date. It's very simple to use, very easy. And it just feels so good. Another thing I think Asana is really uniquely good at is the ability to have information in there that is for reference. If you've taken my course, Asana HQ, you know I talk a lot about how Asana can be a great reference platform for you to store important data about your team member, about clients, links to sales pages, link to checkout pages, lots of good abilities to just store data, SOPs, checklists, all that good stuff. And I never felt like I could actually do the same thing in ClickUp, even though functionally, yes, you can have a task in ClickUp that has the same information as you would in Asana. For me, just visually, the way it showed itself didn't have the same impact. In ClickUp, everything felt like a task and an action item, whereas Asana kind of lets you visually interpret it however you want. I don't know if that makes any sense, but I really missed that part of Asana where it can be a little bit more reference oriented sometimes. And honestly, as excited I was about ClickUp's custom statuses, when it got down to actually using the system, they freaking annoyed me. I was like, can everything just be a yes or a no? Like, I either did it or I didn't. I don't want to have to move it from open to in progress to draft to editing to, but like, no, I just want to click one button and say it's done. I don't want to have to click a button and click a drop down and then pick it and then I was like, I miss just a check mark. I need that satisfaction of just a check mark. And ClickUp can do check marks, but we had set it up originally with a lot of custom statuses. So that's where if we had decided to stay in ClickUp, I would have mandated that we just didn't use the statuses at all and only use like incomplete or complete as our only status. As far as logistics from migrating from Asana to ClickUp back to Asana, that might sound like it took a lot of time, but it actually didn't. And I did that on purpose and in a few different ways. So when I was making the transition from Asana to ClickUp, I actually delegated to my assistant, Bev, for her to build it out in ClickUp, especially since we were starting a new content process together. I didn't have a lot of existing project-based tasks to migrate over. So we really just had to migrate over some recurring tasks, which there weren't too many of, and then start building from there. So actually transitioning from Asana to ClickUp was very, very simple and not a lot of migration required at that time. Now, that being said, I never really ended up using ClickUp for personal tasks in the same way that I had always been using Asana for personal tasks. So had I decided to migrate all of my personal tasks to ClickUp, that would have taken much more time. But thankfully, I didn't do that. And then as far as migrating back, that did take a little extra work since we did have content workflows happening in ClickUp and projects in ClickUp. But honestly, since I had been getting so frustrated with ClickUp, I had been building out projects in Google Docs, and I had honestly been working from a Google Doc more than ClickUp. And by the time I decided we got to make a move, it was because I was barely going into ClickUp at all. And I felt really bad about that because Bev was assigning me administrative tasks or approval tasks in ClickUp, and I didn't want to be in there. So it was really hindering our workflow. So it ended up being a much better and faster decision ultimately to migrate back to Asana. So Bev, who does manage my content, just rebuilt out our content calendar in Asana, migrated those recurring tasks back over. And then she did have to go in and just move any of those one-off tasks that were lingering in ClickUp. But honestly, our business is pretty simple. I've done that on purpose. So it really wasn't too much to migrate back and forth and didn't take, very long at all. Bev did it all in basically a day. And that was not like a stressful transition. So I think the important thing there was just that we knew it was important and we wanted to make the move. So Bev just kind of prioritized it for that day. And like I said, so far I've been so happy being back in Asana. It's felt really fun. I've been in it all day again. I feel like I have a whole new perspective on it where I feel so grateful for different features that maybe at some points I felt like they were lacking, but now I feel really, really happy with the balance of simplicity but capability. And just the idea that I can be on a free plan in Asana and get everything that I want out of it is really, really exciting for me and fulfilling because for ClickUp, I did kind of feel like I wanted to upgrade in order to get the full capabilities. So I was actually paying for ClickUp. And it was only $18 a month, which wasn't a ton, but it always feels good when you can switch to a free software instead. So for me, that has worked out really well. I'm very happy to be back in Asana. I'm happy to answer any more questions you guys have on this transition, but I did want to give you a little update, especially since I just did that podcast episode in episode 15 about the different tools I'm using, and I mentioned ClickUp. So again, ClickUp is a great platform. So many really incredible features. I think it works really well for so many people. So if you are using it, I totally support you and cheer you on. And I'm not trying to bash the platform at all. I would never do that. I honestly never talk bad about any system or software. I just wanted to share my personal experience and why I have decided to move back to Asana and why I'm so happy we made that decision so far. If you also use Asana or want to, but would like to learn how I set up Asana, use it for business and personal, and create my own hub where all of my SOPs, my templates, my projects, my tasks, and my personal life all live in one place, go to asanahq.com or click the link beneath this podcast, and you can find out more about my course, Asana HQ, and how you can turn Asana into your own business and life hub as well. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I will talk to you in the next one. Thank you for listening to the Productive Life Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, it would mean so much to me if you would share your biggest takeaway on your Instagram stories or wherever you hang out. This helps me understand what you find the most helpful so that I can make more episodes and resources like this. If this podcast has helped you at all, please take just 1 minute to leave a review on iTunes so that we can help spread the word about the Productive Life Podcast with others who may enjoy it. And last but not least, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast to get the latest episodes sent to you directly. To learn how to work with me one-on-one or get instant access to freebies, trainings, templates, workshops, and more, be sure to go to meganmins.com right now. I'll see you in the next episode.